Hey everyone. It's your host, Six Path Weeb, back with another exciting fanfic discussion. Today, we're diving into part 5 of our ongoing story, What If Naruko Became a Rogue Shinobi? Before we begin, a quick disclaimer, this content is purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any of the anime footage used, credit goes to the amazing creators behind Naruto. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into it. How did the preliminaries go, Hokage-sama? Asked Hiashi Hyuga as the other clan heads nodded in agreement. They had been called into the meeting right after the conclusion of the preliminaries, meaning they hadn't yet heard the details from their children. Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed, knowing that some of the news he had to share would stir strong reactions. For the most part, everything proceeded smoothly, he began, though there were a few unfortunate incidents. The civilian council members raised their eyebrows at this. Many of them, being well-off civilians, held the belief that as long as the village had skilled shinobi, nothing serious could happen, let alone a loss of life. In total, we lost 3 participants. One was from Otogakure, while the other 2 were from our own village. The room fell silent as the clan heads exchanged uneasy glances. Though they remained composed, their concern was evident. Who were the ones lost, Hokage-sama? Choza Akimichi asked, his voice steady, though a hint of worry lingered. As parents, the unknown weighed on them. Sarutobi offered a reassuring look. Rest assured, none of your children were among them. The tension in the room eased slightly as relief washed over the clan heads. The 3 who lost their lives were Dosu Kinuta of Otogakure, Misumi Tsurugi of Kanahagakure, and Sai of Kanahagakure. Danzo's eye narrowed slightly upon hearing Sai's name. Impossible. Sai was one of my most capable operatives, easily at the level of a newly appointed jonin. Who could have possibly defeated him? Sarutobi continued, from what we observed, the events were swift. Dosu Kinuta fell to Gaara of the desert, who appears to have an extraordinary ability to manipulate sand. He used this technique to surround Dosu and incapacitate him instantly. The civilian council members looked unsettled, while the shinobi leaders were intrigued. Elemental abilities were not uncommon, but direct control over sand was certainly something worth investigating. Misumi's loss was at the hands of a kunoichi from Kumagakure, Sarutobi went on, drawing frowns from the shinobi council. The tension in the room deepened at the mention of Kumo, given the village's past actions. The kunoichi, Kaoru, a teammate of Naruko, was responsible. She utilized a technique called Kumo style, whirlwind dance, which overwhelmed Misumi before he could react. The revelation caused some murmurs, but it was the next piece of information that truly shifted the atmosphere. However, it is Sai's passing that troubles me the most, Sarutobi admitted. Danzo's eyebrow lifted slightly at this. How had one of his most skilled agents met such a fate? Sai's opponent was Naruko, Sarutobi revealed. The room fell into stunned silence. The idea that Naruko, still a Jonin, could take down someone of Sai's caliber was surprising to say the least. The Shinobi Council immediately considered the possibility that Kumo had trained her to a high level. But that's not all, Sarutobi added gravely. It was the manner in which Naruko fought that raises concerns. It appears that she has been taught the use of black lightning. The room collectively inhaled at the mention of this rare and formidable ability. If Naruko truly wielded black lightning, reclaiming her into Konoha's fold would be significantly more complicated than they had anticipated. Danzo was deep in thought. If Naruko had the strength to defeat one of his finest operatives, she was no ordinary shinobi. Factoring in her command of black lightning, even he had to acknowledge the immense potential she possessed. Inoiki is right, Sarutobi agreed. We need to make preparations to bring Naruko back to the village and ensure she is given the guidance she needs. However, before any further discussions could take place, a voice from the civilian council spoke up. We cannot allow that girl to return, Tsuyuki Haruno interjected sharply. You said it yourself, Hokage-sama, she defeated one of our own shinobi. She should be held accountable for her actions. She continued, her voice filled with personal grievances. My daughter hasn't had a peaceful night's sleep since returning from her mission in Wave. I don't know what Naruko did, but something about her has unsettled my child, and I demand action. Before she could say another word, the entire room was filled with an overwhelming sense of authority and discipline. The air grew tense, and silence fell upon the chamber. Sarutobi's gaze was firm as he addressed the room. This is not a matter to be decided by emotion alone. We must act wisely for the future of our village. The discussion was far from over, but one thing was certain, Naruko was no longer just a Jonin. She was a force to be reckoned with. Council chambers. I would suggest that you remain silent, said Sarutobi, his voice carrying a weight that filled the room with tension. Even Danzo had to suppress a shudder at the commanding tone. Naruko may not currently be part of this village, but my decree regarding discussions about the Kyuubi still stands. If anyone speaks of it again, there will be severe consequences. The seriousness in the Hokage's voice, along with the sudden appearance of an Anbu standing behind him, was enough to quiet even the most outspoken in the room. Now, as Inoiki mentioned, we need to act swiftly. How are the plans progressing regarding our effort to encourage Naruko's return? Quite well, Hyashi responded, nodding at Inoiki, who mirrored the gesture. While we have yet to inform our daughters of the details, I have already made arrangements to create opportunities for them to befriend Naruko. I have also coordinated efforts within my clan to support this initiative, Inoiki added. The Hokage nodded in approval. While his Anbu could easily intervene, having the cooperation of key clans ensured a smoother approach. Shibi Aburame, ever composed, spoke next. Inoiki-san is correct. If our first approach does not yield the desired result, we must have a secondary plan in place. The room fell silent as the clan leaders carefully considered their next course of action. Meanwhile, the civilians in the chamber were lost in their own discussions. Unlike the clan leaders, their concerns did not revolve around Naruko's safe return but rather their own perspectives on her presence in the village. A shadowed corner of the council chambers. These people are truly something else, thought a concealed clone, listening intently. If the boss finds out about their plans, there's going to be trouble. And if Yugito-chan hears about it. The clone shivered slightly, not wanting to imagine the reaction. Judging from Danzo's involvement, it's likely he was the one responsible for placing that seal. Well, I suppose I've found my next target. Naruko's clone narrowed its eyes at the head of the root Anbu. I can't believe the leadership of the so-called strongest of the five would resort to such underhanded tactics just for their own gain. And they seriously think I'd be swayed by people I barely know? They clearly don't understand me at all. A voice rumbled in her mind, chuckling. You have standards? Quiet, Kurama. Or I'm locking you back in that corner of my mind. Naruko's clone retorted, silencing the fox. She then refocused her attention as Shikaku Nara stood up. Trust a Nara to be the first to come up with an alternative plan. Back with the council. I have a proposal, Hokage-sama, Shikaku said as he stood. Kumo has used certain techniques to ensure loyalty in the past. Perhaps we could apply a seal designed to counteract external influences and restore Naruko's free will. Additionally, if we present her with the inheritance she rightfully deserves, it may encourage her to return willingly. Sarutobi sat quietly, considering the idea. After several moments of silence, he nodded slightly, a small smile forming. I see the potential in this approach, Shikaku. It carries some risks, but the benefits could outweigh them, he said. The clan heads and elders exchanged glances before nodding in agreement. Danzo smirked slightly. This was the very strategy he had once attempted himself. If the Hokage is endorsing this method, I can ensure one of my shinobi is included in the retrieval team, Danzo thought, his smirk widening slightly. Very well, the Hokage concluded. We will reconvene at the end of the week to finalize our strategies. Inoiki, Hyashi, begin making arrangements for your daughters to befriend Naruko. The sooner we begin, the better. With that, Sarutobi rose, signaling the end of the meeting. Like heck it is. With Team 20, same time. So, Sensei, what's the plan for the next month? Kaoru asked as she and her team walked toward their hotel. They were aware that Kakashi and his group were keeping an eye on them under Hokage's orders, but they much preferred this over standard Konoha Anbu surveillance. I've already sent a message to the boss, Daru responded as they entered their room. Once Naruko activated a basic Uzumaki seal on the door, they opened a window to let her siblings in. Once everyone was settled, Kakashi decided to share an update. It seems Sasuke is unhappy about not being able to copy any of the techniques he saw during the prelims, Kakashi noted. Before I could stop him, he and his usual group had already requested an audience with the Hokage and were escorted there by Anbu. When they discover the seal you gave me, they'll likely demand its removal immediately. Guy, Kurenai, and Anko exchanged concerned glances. If the council figured out who had created the seal, things could escalate quickly. However, to their surprise, Naruko simply chuckled before reclining against the couch. So, we have a situation where someone is throwing a tantrum, some followers are complaining about things that don't concern them, and a group of officials think they can dictate everything? She mused. That doesn't seem like a problem to me, especially with the plan I have in motion. Everyone in the room reacted differently. Yugito and Kairo remained unfazed, they had long learned that life with Naruko was never dull. Daru sighed. His successor was always unpredictable, but he hadn't expected her to come up with a strategy that might challenge a cage. Then again, he shouldn't have been surprised. Kakashi, however, looked intrigued. His little sister had something up her sleeve, and she clearly believed it could outmaneuver the Konoha Council. This next month is going to be very interesting, he thought. Curious, he finally asked, "What exactly do you have planned, little sister?" A confident, fox-like grin spread across Naruko's face, one that could rival the Kyuubi itself. "Oh, you'll see soon enough," she said, her voice brimming with mischief. Council chambers. The council stood frozen in place as the owner of the voice stepped out from the shadows. A young woman with sun-kissed blonde hair and distinct whisker-like marks on her cheeks stood before them, arms crossed and an unwavering expression on her face. It took several moments for the gathered officials, including the hidden Anbu, to recover from their initial shock. However, once they did, chaos erupted. The Anbu assigned to security leapt into action, attempting to subdue the blonde, perhaps even eliminate her under the guise of an accident. The moment the civilians recognized her voice, they began shouting for her capture. Meanwhile, the heads of the noble clans moved swiftly to intercept the Anbu, determined to prevent a grave mistake. From his position, the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, stood motionless, his mind reeling. He could hardly believe that the girl he had come to see as his own granddaughter had been eavesdropping on the meeting. Shaking off his disbelief, he attempted to restore order, but his words fell on deaf ears. The Anbu, driven by personal prejudice, ignored his commands, while the clan heads knew that if they didn't intervene, they risked losing the last heir to two of the most powerful bloodlines in Konoha's history. Naruko remained still, watching as six masked Anbu, weapons drawn, closed in on her. She glanced at the clan heads rushing in her direction as well. Judging by their speed and their lack of hostility toward me, they're probably trying to stop the Anbu, she analyzed. As her attackers reached striking distance, she took a deep breath. Time for phase 1. With the Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi could only watch as a bare-masked Anbu swung his sword, seemingly striking Naruko down. At that moment, reality hit him like a crushing wave. The legacy of his dear friends, Minato and Kushina, was gone. He had failed, not just as a leader, but as a protector. Minato, Kushina. I couldn't keep my promise. I failed Naruko. A cheer erupted from the civilian council. In their eyes, the threat they had feared for years was finally gone. They were already considering renaming the annual village festival, not to celebrate the defeat of the Nine Tails, but to mark the day they believed the danger had been eliminated. The clan heads, however, were struck with horror. The last descendant of two of the most powerful shinobi families had just been cut down, by one of their own Anbu. Their gazes darkened with determination. They would ensure that those responsible faced justice. A sudden clearing of a throat snapped everyone out of their thoughts. All eyes turned toward Danzo Shimura, who sat calmly in his seat. Reactions varied. The civilians assumed he was merely pleased, while the clan heads were furious at his indifference. But it was Hiruzen who spoke first, his voice sharp with anger. How can you be so calm? One of our own Anbu just attacked the only heir of the Namikaze and Uzumaki clans. This could spark conflict with Kumo. They won't take kindly to losing one of their shinobi at our hands. His anger manifested in an oppressive aura, filling the room. Danzo, however, simply smirked, a knowing, almost playful expression. I must say, I'm surprised that your so-called elite Anbu failed to detect a basic substitution jutsu, he remarked with a quiet chuckle. Hiruzen's expression shifted from rage to confusion, until Danzo disappeared in a puff of smoke. Every shinobi in the room tensed, ready for an attack. As the smoke cleared, a very familiar figure emerged, Naruko, very much alive and standing confidently before them. I do have to question how they made it into the Anbu ranks if they couldn't see through such a simple trick, something even an experienced Shinin could recognize, she mused. Before anyone could fully grasp what had happened, another poof of smoke filled the chamber. As it dissipated, a chilling sight was revealed, Danzo Shimura's body, motionless, lying in a growing pool of crimson. His severed head rested nearby, his expression frozen in perpetual shock. An eerie silence settled over the room. Then, in a quiet but firm voice, the Hokage spoke. Naruko. Why would you do this? He asked, his tone laced with disbelief. Naruko simply exhaled, surveying the room. The civilians looked unsettled, though they tried to mask it by glaring at her. The Anbu, despite their masks, radiated unease. As expected, she thought. They've always blamed me for their problems, no matter the circumstances. The Shinobi Council, however, reacted very differently. Some even allowed small smiles to form as the realization sank in: Danzo was gone. The man who had manipulated Konoha's darkest dealings was no longer a threat. The Hokage, though, remained focused solely on Naruko, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief and concern. Why? She echoed. Because he tried to have Sai place a loyalty seal on me, one that would have forced me into his service. I stopped him before he had the chance, and I eliminated Danzo before he could try again. If his plan had succeeded, it would have interfered with mine. The room tensed. Her plan? The Hokage and several clan heads exchanged glances. Seeing their curiosity, Naruko sighed. Phase 1 is complete. Now for the second part. I infiltrated this meeting to ensure that none of you were planning anything that might interfere with my own objectives. It seems I made the right choice. Your attempt to separate Yugito-chan from my side won't work, and a loyalty seal won't be necessary either. Shikaku Nara furrowed his brow. 2 conflicting loyalty seals would cancel each other out, he murmured, recalling his earlier theory. That's true, Naruko confirmed. But I already broke free from the one Kumo placed on me when they tried to take me. Silence filled the chamber once more, the weight of her words settling over them. One thing was certain: Naruko was not someone to be underestimated. Naruko's strategic return. What? How did you break the seal? Sarutobi asked, his expression shifting from concern to relief. His posture relaxed immediately, assuming that Naruko was no threat and that she would soon request to return to the village. The blonde noticed this and hid a subtle smirk. The old man is playing right into my hands. How I broke the seal is not the issue right now, Naruko stated firmly. What matters is that you do not interfere with me or my team while the exams are ongoing. If you do, it could jeopardize my plan, and the consequences would be far from ideal. As you were informed earlier, I can wield black lightning, but what you don't know is that since breaking the seal, I have been discreetly gathering and studying every technique Kumo has in its possession. I need only a few more months to complete my research. Once I have everything I need, I will leave Kumo and return here, my true home. The room fell silent. Even the civilians and Anbu present could not argue against the benefits of allowing Naruko to return with such valuable knowledge. The clan heads, in particular, were thrilled at the idea of gaining access to Kumo's vast arsenal of techniques. Sarutobi, pleased with the thought of acquiring new jutsu, was even more overjoyed at the prospect of Naruko returning to the village. To him, she was like a granddaughter, and he was eager to have her back. Very well, Naruko, he said, nodding. We will not interfere with your plan. I only ask that you meet with us whenever possible while you are here to keep us updated on your progress. The rest of the council, including the civilians, nodded in agreement. I will come when I can, Naruko replied. But I can't guarantee frequent visits. My sensei will be training my team and me for most of the month-long break to prepare us for the finals. However, I do have one request. Sarutobi gestured for her to continue. I request access to my birthright, my clan's compound within the village, as well as entry to the Hokage's personal library so I can further my knowledge of sealing techniques. Of course, Naruko. I will have Kakashi deliver a map and the keys to your compound this evening. As for the library, I will leave instructions on its location and how to access it along with the map. Sarutobi smiled warmly, his expression that of a kind mentor. He's making this too easy, Naruko thought, keeping her expression neutral. Either he's getting forgetful in his old age or he's far too trusting. She gave him a polite smile and stood to leave. I'll report my progress when I can. In the meantime, I will send updates through my siblings. I should go now before my team starts wondering where I am. Oh, and one more thing, Sasuke Uchiha will be coming soon, demanding someone examine him because he can't access his chakra. Before he starts making baseless accusations, I was the one who gave Kakashi Niazan the seal that blocked his chakra flow. I did it because I didn't want my techniques and hard-earned skills stolen by someone who hasn't put in the effort. With that, Naruko turned and exited the room, a satisfied expression on her face. With Team 20. The real Naruko was seated with her team and siblings, explaining her plan, when she suddenly stopped. Her eyes momentarily glazed over, a sign that her shadow clone had just dispelled. She remained in that state for a few moments before snapping back to reality, frustration evident on her face. She let out a deep sigh, clearly irritated. What's wrong? One of her teammates asked, concerned. Naruko ran a hand through her hair and exhaled sharply. Some of what my clone overheard doesn't sit well with me, she admitted. It seems that the council was planning to use the daughters of the clans to form ties with me, hoping I would develop attachments that would keep me in the village. And if that didn't work, they planned to use a loyalty seal on me. Her siblings and teammates were taken aback, their expressions ranging from disbelief to anger. My clone made sure they wouldn't attempt anything for now, Naruko continued. But I doubt that will stop the clan heads from encouraging their daughters to try and gain my favor in hopes of securing my clan's power for themselves. Before she could say anything more, a sudden surge of anger flared within the group. One particular individual was especially furious. If anyone even thinks about trying to manipulate Naruko like that, they'll regret it, her girlfriend muttered, her voice low and dangerous. A faint trace of chakra flickered around her, signaling her growing frustration. Naruko acted instantly. The moment she sensed the slightest release of chakra, she was beside her, taking hold of her arm. In a swift motion, they disappeared in a blur of speed, leaving the rest of the team momentarily stunned. Aftermath. The room remained silent for a few moments before someone finally spoke. What just happened? Anko asked, regaining her bearings. She turned to the other jounin present, only to find them just as puzzled. Daru, their sensei, let out a resigned sigh. Judging by the level of anger just now, those two probably won't be back until later tonight, he stated calmly. Kaoru nodded in agreement. Yeah, whenever one of them gets that upset, it takes a while to calm things down. Kakashi let out a small chuckle, while Guy dramatically declared something about maintaining youthful passions before dashing out of the room. Kurenai, despite her usually composed demeanor, blushed slightly at the implications. Anko, on the other hand, smirked. Hey, those two sure are close, she mused. It's always interesting to see how they balance each other out. With that, the conversation shifted, and the team prepared to rest for the evening. Hyuga compound, main house. Hiyashi sat across from his eldest daughter, who appeared slightly irritated at being interrupted during her training. Hinata, I have an important task for you, Hiyashi said, gaining her full attention. During the preliminaries, did you happen to notice someone by the name of Naruko Namikaze? At Hinata's nod, he continued, she is the daughter of my former rival, Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage, and Kushina Uzumaki. Her lineage holds immense strength, and forming an alliance with her could greatly benefit our clan. Your mission is to build a connection with her and gain her trust. However, there is one challenge, she seems to have formed a close bond with a kunoichi from Kumo. If their bond proves to be an obstacle, you may need to find a way to outshine her and ensure Naruko sees the potential of aligning with you. Hinata's lips curled into a confident smile. Of course, father. With such a legacy, Naruko is truly someone worth getting to know. As for her current companion, I have no doubt that my skills and heritage will prove my worth. By the end of the Chunin exams, I will have earned Naruko's trust and secured a bond that will strengthen our clan. With that, she rose gracefully and returned to her training, her confidence unwavering. Naruko, soon you'll see that standing by my side is the best place for you. Naruko walked through the forest behind the Hokage monument, leading her team and siblings. That morning, Kakashi had delivered a map to her clan's compound along with instructions regarding access to the Hokage's personal library. She and Yugito had returned early that morning, only to be greeted by a smirking Anko and Kakashi, who had not stopped teasing them since they left the apartment. I still can't believe you managed to sneak off for 5 hours. And at your age, too, Anko teased, while Kakashi chuckled behind his mask. Naruko's face turned crimson for what felt like the 100th time that morning. If this is the kind of teasing we get just for spending time together, I don't even want to imagine what Nizan would say if she thought something more had happened, she thought as she continued leading the group through the lush forests of Konoha. Alright, that's enough teasing, sis. Or should I start sharing some of your little secrets? Naruko countered with a smirk. Anko immediately fell silent, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. You wouldn't actually do that, would you, little sister? She asked cautiously. The playful grin on Naruko's face was all the answer she needed. She's getting just as mischievous as me, Anko thought, shaking her head. The group continued their journey in silence, the only sound being Anko muttering about little sisters with big mouths. After 20 minutes of walking, they finally arrived at the entrance to the Namikaze clan compound. Unlike the elaborate iron gates seen at other clan estates, the Namikaze entrance was marked by a traditional torii gate, with a brick wall enclosing the rest of the property. At the top of the gate, the Namikaze clan symbol was elegantly carved into the wood, 9 tomoe surrounding the kanji for Shinobi, outlined in gold. For a few moments, everyone simply stared in awe. Finally, Kakashi spoke. Naruko, the entrance is protected by a blood seal that can only be released by a member of the Namikaze or Uzumaki clans, he explained. Your parents were like family to me, and I spent a great deal of time here when I wasn't on missions. They were true masters of sealing techniques, and together, they created a barrier that makes this compound nearly impenetrable. Even now, I am still amazed by what they accomplished. He turned to Naruko with a serious expression. To open the gate, you need to place a small amount of your blood on the seal in the center, he instructed. Naruko frowned slightly in confusion. There was no visible seal on the gate, only the opening leading inside. Hey, Kurama, mind lending me your eyes for a second? She asked her tenant. You got it, Kit, the deep voice of the Nine-Tails rumbled in her mind. Closing her eyes, she felt a familiar tingling sensation as her vision shifted. When she opened them again, her pupils had become slitted, her irises glowing a deep crimson. Now, she could see it, a light blue energy barrier covering the entrance, nearly invisible to the naked eye. In the center of this barrier, floating in the air, was the blood seal Kakashi had mentioned. Her eyes widened in realization before she shook off her momentary surprise. Stepping forward, she bit her thumb lightly and pressed a drop of blood onto the invisible seal. Almost instantly, the seal glowed for a brief moment before vanishing, along with a section of the barrier around the gate. Meanwhile, Kakashi had uncovered his Sharingan to observe the way the barrier reacted to Naruko's blood. Yugito, following Naruko's example, had used Matatabi's abilities to see the energy within the barrier. The way the energy flowed, as if moving with a gentle breeze, suddenly gave her an idea. Kitten, that's a brilliant observation. Matatabi purred in her mind. Though, mastering something like that will take considerable time. You'll need to become far more proficient with my special techniques, and you'll need extensive knowledge of sealing arts, especially barrier seals. Yugito nodded thoughtfully. That means more time studying with Naruko, she mused. A warm image of the two of them researching seals together filled her mind, only for Matatabi to mischievously warp the thought into something completely embarrassing. Matatabi. That's not what I meant. And who in their right mind would even? Hey, Yugito. Snap out of it. Karu's voice jolted her out of her thoughts. Huh? What? Yugito responded, blinking in confusion as she tried to refocus on the moment. I said come on, everyone's already exploring the rest of the compound, Naruko urged before gently grabbing her teammate's hand and leading her through the gate. The sight that greeted them was breathtaking, something they wouldn't forget anytime soon. The main house of the compound stood at least 3 stories tall, built in a traditional Japanese style. Its walls were made of rich, dark wood, intricately carved with elegant designs along the columns at each corner. The roof was covered in obsidian black tiles that gleamed under the midday sun. To the side of the house, a serene lake stretched out, its waters shimmering as koi fish glided just beneath the surface. Wow, the two kunoichi breathed in awe. The estate exuded a sense of warmth and belonging, yet there was an undeniable aura warning against unwelcome visitors. Hey, you two, check this out. The call from their teammate snapped them out of their trance. Hurrying toward the voice, they found Naruko standing with their sensei and his siblings, gazing over the vast area behind the house. Behind the estate lay an impressive training field, easily the size of the Konoha Stadium, its lush greenery blending seamlessly into the surrounding forest. Off to one side, a hot spring bubbled invitingly, making Yugito and Karu practically daydream about the relaxation awaiting them. Alright, let's take a look inside. After that, I'm going to find my father's library, Naruko said, heading toward the front door, with the others following close behind. With the key Kakashi had given her that morning, Naruko unlocked the door, pushing it open to reveal a welcoming entry hall. A few paintings adorned the walls, and to the left, an open doorway led into a spacious kitchen. Opposite the kitchen, another doorway opened into a cozy living room. At the end of the hall, a staircase curved upward beside another hallway leading to the back rooms. Let's get our things put away first, then we'll start training. We can explore the house later, Naruko decided, moving toward the stairs where Kakashi had indicated the bedrooms were located. Once everyone had settled into their rooms, Naruko taking the master bedroom, they regrouped in the expansive living room to plan their next steps. Now that we're all set, we can begin training for the finals, Daru announced, watching as his team nodded in agreement. Naruko, for now, explore your clan's library and train with whatever you find there. Also, try to uncover any information on where your ancestors might have hidden the Uzumaki vault. Yugito, check for fire-style jutsu in the library and work with those until Dodai and be arrived to assist. Karu, While our kenjutsu styles differ, I can teach you a few techniques. In the meantime, I'll also help you with some water-style jutsu until we find a specialist for advanced sword training. Actually, Daru, I might know someone who can help with that, Anko chimed in, drawing everyone's attention. You probably don't know this, but Kurenai and I were on the same Jinan team as Hayate Gecko. We were trained by your mother, Naruko, Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. She was a master in nearly every shinobi discipline, and each of us inherited a part of her skills. I followed in her footsteps in assassination and ninjutsu. Kurenai specialized in genjutsu, and Hayate excelled in kenjutsu. Right now, he's the best kenjutsu user in the village. When he learned that you were Kushina-sensei's daughter, he immediately vowed to help in any way he could. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to assist with kenjutsu training. Naruko sat in thought for a few moments before nodding. Turning to Anko, she gave her approval to find Hayate and bring him to the compound. The moment the words left her mouth, Anko and Kurenai were already out the door, their excited voices fading into the distance as they set off to find their former teammate. Okay. Those two are a little too enthusiastic, Karu muttered, suppressing a shiver. The others silently nodded in agreement. It was always surprising how quickly those two could shift from their composed, serious personas to cheerful, giggling excitement. All right, while those two are occupied, let's get started, said Naruko as she stood up. Kakashi, you and Guy should head out and locate the entrance to the Hokage library. Once you've found it, come get me, and we can move on to the next phase of the plan. With a nod, the two Jounin disappeared in a blur, knowing that their younger sibling's strategy couldn't progress without securing the library first. Yugito-chan, let's head to the library and begin studying. Kairo, when you're finished training with Daru-sensei, feel free to join us, okay? With that, the blonde duo made their way toward the back of the house, leaving their amused teammate and sensei in the living room. Let's hope they stay focused on studying, right, sensei? Kairo joked as she watched them leave. Daru chuckled. Right. Well, we should get started as well, he said, standing up and heading toward the training field with his red-haired student following. With Naruko and Yugito. The two blondes had just reached the library, and their eyes widened in amazement. The library was enormous. From what they could see, it was nearly as large as the master bedroom, which took up a significant portion of the third floor. After regaining her composure, Naruko took a closer look around. Shelves upon shelves of books and scrolls lined the walls, extending all the way to the back of the room, where she could make out the outline of a vault door. Come on, Yugito-chan, let's take a closer look, she said, snapping her companion out of her daze. Yugito nodded, and together they began exploring, familiarizing themselves with the layout and organization of the vast collection. The first thing they noticed was how meticulously everything was categorized. The library was divided into 5 major sections: ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, sealing, and kinjutsu. The ninjutsu section was further sorted into elemental categories: fire, water, earth, wind, and lightning, along with non-elemental techniques. These were then arranged by difficulty, from D rank all the way up to S rank. The genjutsu section was divided into offensive and supportive techniques, both ranked in terms of effectiveness. The taijutsu section contained offensive and defensive styles, with an additional subsection dedicated to kenjutsu. The kinjutsu section, unlike the others, was locked behind a glass barrier with a blood seal in the center. This section only contained techniques ranked B rank and above. Meanwhile, the sealing section was organized into beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels. Where would you like to start, Yugito-chan? Naruko asked, turning to her friend. I'd like to learn more about sealing techniques, especially barrier formations, Yugito replied while browsing the fire-style portion of the ninjutsu section. She didn't notice the bright grin that appeared on Naruko's face. She wants to study sealing with me? This is one of the best days ever. Naruko cheered internally, barely able to contain her excitement. If you're interested in sealing, I'd be more than happy to teach you the basics, Naruko offered enthusiastically. Yugito's eyes lit up, and she responded by giving her friend a quick but grateful hug. After regaining her composure, Naruko grinned and unsealed a scroll containing the foundational knowledge of Uzumaki sealing techniques. All right then, she said, rolling the scroll open, let's begin. All right, Kairo, today I'll be teaching you a new kenjutsu technique. This technique is quite unique because only those with a natural affinity for lightning-style jutsu can perform it. It's called Kumo style, lightning saw. To execute this technique, you must channel your lightning chakra into your sword and shape it into a serrated edge along the blade. Once the chakra is properly formed, you will need to slash at your target while releasing the chakra in your blade, allowing it to take the form of a spinning saw that is extremely difficult to block. If performed correctly, the result should look like this, Daru explained as he drew his cleaver sword and began channeling his chakra into the blade. If one observed closely, they could see the faint outline of saw-like teeth forming along the edge, with occasional arcs of lightning crackling between them. Raising his sword, Daru swung at one of the many target dummies positioned in the training grounds behind the Namikaze house. From the sword, a rotating saw of pure lightning chakra launched forward, slicing through the dummy effortlessly before vanishing into the air. This is a B-rank technique and quite challenging to master due to the high level of chakra control required. It will likely take you the entire month to refine it. However, if Naruko's plan unfolds as expected, you'll have access to even more techniques from the Hokage library, and if he agrees, you might even learn directly from Hayate himself, Daru added. Alright, sensei. I think I'll focus on that technique later tonight. For now, how about we work on another elemental jutsu? Kaoru suggested while mentally reviewing the steps she could take to master the lightning saw more efficiently. We'll save elemental jutsu for when the entire team is together. Right now, we'll focus on improving your chakra control. You'll be practicing water walking while simultaneously using your chakra to balance senbon on your body, Daru stated with a knowing smirk. Kaoru immediately recognized that expression. That look on sensei's face. It only means one thing, he's about to put me through one of his intense training sessions, she thought, instinctively taking a step back. I should have gone with Naruko and Yugito to the library instead, was her last thought before her grueling chakra control training began. Meanwhile, with Kakashi and Guy. Are you certain we're headed in the right direction, my eternal rival? Guy asked as the two jounin swiftly moved across the rooftops. Absolutely, Guy. Minato-sensei once took me to the library to archive information regarding Chidori and Reikiri as A and S rank techniques, respectively. I don't recall the exact location, but I remember the general area, Kakashi responded as they paused atop a roof a few blocks away from the Hokage Tower. We're close. There are two Onbu stationed nearby, likely acting as guards to prevent unauthorized access, Kakashi noted, scanning the surroundings. His gaze landed on a small warehouse a short distance away. Remember, Kakashi, sometimes the most valuable secrets are hidden in plain sight. The voice of his late sensei echoed in his mind as a memory from his past resurfaced. Flashback. Minato-sensei, I thought you said we were heading to the Hokage library to document Chidori and Reikiri in the archives, a young Kakashi questioned, glancing skeptically at the inconspicuous building before him. His sensei had explained that they needed to add his techniques so that future assassination specialists could access them for critical missions. Chuckling, Minato turned to his talented but ever serious student. Kakashi, haven't you always said to look underneath the underneath? As shinobi, we must never take things at face value. Remember, sometimes, the most powerful secrets are hidden in plain sight, the fourth Hokage said, leading his silver-haired student into the small warehouse near the Hokage Tower. End flashback. Kakashi's eyes narrowed as the memory faded. That's it. The warehouse, it's more than it seems. Found it, Guy, said Kakashi as the green spandex-wearing shinobi moved over to examine the warehouse. Not exactly the place I would have chosen to hide the village's greatest secrets, he commented, continuing to observe the building. Maybe, but as my sensei once said, sometimes the most powerful secrets are hidden in plain sight. Come on, let's head back to the compound. Naruko's going to want to begin the second phase of her plan as soon as possible. Nodding in agreement, the two jounin took off, eager to return to the Namikaze compound and see what their younger sibling had planned for the village. Namikaze compound, later that night. Team 20 sat across from Naruko's siblings in the living room of the Namikaze house, with one extra person present. Hayate Gecko sat between his two former teammates, staring at Naruko with a pleading look in his eyes. Noticing the expression on his guest's face, Naruko decided it was time to start the conversation. Hayate-san, my sisters say you studied under my mother with them, and while I trust their judgment, I would like to confirm a few things for myself, said Naruko, as Hayate nodded in understanding, silently asking her to continue. First off, if my mother were still alive and had decided to leave the village for any reason, would you follow her, or would your loyalties remain with the village? Hayate, to everyone except Anko and Kurenai's surprise, didn't hesitate in his answer. Your mother, Naruko, was the closest thing I ever had to a mother. Like you, I never had the chance to meet my own parents, but when I was placed on Kushina-sensei's team, I found the closest thing to a family that I could. She took me in, just as Minato-sensei took in Kakashi. They were my family, and my loyalty to my family has and always will outweigh that to the village. The room fell silent as everyone was moved by the deep emotion in Hayate's voice. Anko and Kurenai each held one of his hands to comfort him. Hayate wasn't finished yet, though. When I learned that Sensei was pregnant with you, I was overjoyed. But nothing could compare to the joy I felt when Sensei asked if I would like to be your big brother. Then the Kyuubi attacked. By the time I returned to the village from my mission, Minato-sensei had already sealed the beast. When I asked the third Hokage about it, he told me Kushina-sensei had died during childbirth, along with her son. That news devastated me. I fell into a depression that soon turned into an illness. I felt like I had no reason to live, and I simply went through the motions, not caring about anything. When I learned who you were during the preliminaries, I couldn't believe it at first. It felt like a dream, but when Anko and Kurenai confirmed it, I was elated. I had a chance to be the big brother I always wanted to be, and for that, in honor of my late sensei, I will follow you wherever you go, helping to train you and your team in whatever way I can. After what this village has done to you, they no longer deserve my loyalty. My loyalty now lies with you, my family. Naruko stood up at the end of Hayate's speech and walked over to the ailing Jounin, silent tears streaming down her face. She knelt before him and pulled him into a heartfelt hug. The joy of finally finding a long-lost sibling overwhelmed both of them. Anko and Kurenai smiled at the scene, having tried many times to convince Hayate that Naruko was truly Kushina's child. To finally see them together, as it always should have been, brought tears of happiness to their eyes. Kakashi smiled beneath his mask at the touching moment. He and Hayate had been the closest thing to brothers due to their shared senseis, and seeing the two finally united was deeply moving for him. Guy, overwhelmed with emotion, had tears running down his face, watching as Naruko had done what he couldn't, bringing Hayate out of his isolation with her warmth and connection. Pulling away from the hug, Naruko smiled at Hayate before rejoining her team on the opposite couch. After that, I don't think any of my other questions are necessary, she said. Let's catch you up on everything that's been going on. Naruko then went into a brief but detailed explanation of everything that had happened up to that point, as well as what they planned for the upcoming month. At the end of the explanation, Hayate couldn't hide the grin that spread across his face at the thought of what his little sister had in store for the third Hokage. Revenge will be sweet, he thought, as he listened to the plans and the training sessions they would focus on during their month-long break. Alright, now that everyone's caught up, I think it's time to begin phase 3 of the plan, Naruko said, creating a shadow clone. With a nod, she vanished in a burst of speed. While my clone gets things moving again, how about we get some ninjutsu training in? With nods of agreement from everyone, they made their way to the training field behind the house. Soon, the Raijin will be back where it truly belongs, in the hands of an Uzumaki, Naruko thought as she watched Kakashi demonstrate a new wind technique she would be learning. Hiruzen Sarutobi sat at his desk, carefully reviewing the mountains of paperwork that seemed to multiply by the hour. Sometimes I wonder why I accepted this position, he mused, stamping yet another document with his official seal. Just as he was about to resume his work, the sound of a throat clearing interrupted his thoughts. Startled that he hadn't noticed the person's approach, he looked up to see the smiling face of his surrogate granddaughter. "Ah, Naruko, what can I do for you, my dear?" asked Sarutobi with a warm smile, though he couldn't help but marvel at how Naruko had managed to approach without him sensing it. Her stealth skills are impressive. To sneak up on me like that is no small feat, he thought. Little did he know, Naruko was thinking, old man must be getting forgetful if he didn't notice me coming in. Either that, or he believes no one would dare challenge him within the village. Actually, I have a request, Naruko said, catching Sarutobi off guard just a little. What do you know about the Raijin sword? Sarutobi paused, placing the paper he had been holding down and leaning back in his chair. The Raijin sword, yes, he began, his tone becoming more serious. It is a legendary blade, said to have been forged from a bolt of lightning. It is said to have the ability to cut through anything it touches. My old sensei, the second Hokage, wielded it in battle many times. However, it was stolen from the village a few years ago by a rogue ninja named Aoi Rokuso, he explained. He was unaware that his words might carry more weight than he intended, especially considering how much the Raijin meant to Naruko's clan. Naruko's expression remained calm, though internally she was seething with frustration. How could they allow a traitor to steal such an important artifact? This village has so much to answer for. She kept her thoughts to herself and responded, if it has been stolen, then I must ask that you send a team to recover it immediately. The Raijin is vital for the success of my mission. Without it, I might not only fail, but it could also cost me my life. Sarutobi's face shifted from confusion to concern. Don't worry, Naruko. I promise that by the end of the week, you'll have the Raijin in your possession. In the meantime, I suggest you focus on your training for the finals. If you run into any of your siblings, please send them to me. They will lead the mission to retrieve the Raijin for you, Sarutobi assured her as he signaled for his Anbu to locate the necessary jounin. Thanks, old man, Naruko said, her voice light, though her mind was already focused on the task ahead. I'll contact you as soon as I can. She turned and left the room, her steps quiet and purposeful. As she exited, a small, confident smile crept across her face. Phase 3 begins now. Dear YouTube family. That wraps up this segment for today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. Stay tuned for more exciting content coming your way soon. Until next time. Warm regards. 6 Path Weeb.